Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Tuesday, May 19th. Thank you for joining us. And Annette, thank you for joining me for today and for this month of living a heart-led life. We focused a lot on the what's and the whys. Now we're getting into the hows. That's what we'll be looking at for the remainder of the month, the how-to side of living a heart-led life. Our first step in our how-to is letting go of roles and expectations, checking in with who you thought you had to be versus who you actually are, your authentic self. Unfortunately, the sad truth of the matter is many people are not responding to life from their authentic selves. They're reacting from learned identities and survival roles. Here are some examples just in case you're unsure about what we're talking about. You may have thought this about yourself or about someone else in your circle of friends and in your family. There might be the peacemaker or the fixer. Think back to high-functioning codependency with that one. The responsible one, the caretaker, the achiever, the good spouse, daughter, parent, friend, the person who never disappoints others. That's a small snippet of examples, but those are the roles that we can play in our lives if we're not living heart-led. Some people might be the funny one or the clown. And if we're just playing a role, we're not living heart-led. We're not living authentically. We're showing up as who we're supposed to be, or who we at least think we're supposed to be in a given situation. And we might do that to stay safe, to gain approval, to avoid conflict, to feel worthy or to belong, but we got to let all that go. We must. And to start, we can ask ourselves this question: who am I underneath this role? Who am I underneath this role? Annette, I would love to hear your answer to this question, the who am I underneath this role? I know that's broad, but I want to personalize it a little bit for today. I always felt I knew who I was underneath the role I played in my life.
What role did you play?
I think in a lot of ways I was the funny one, or I was I would say, this kind of sounds funny, I didn't want to create problems for anyone.
I saw the role as the funny one, but I never really saw the role, and this is important to say, I think, because we might have in our mind of how we think we're supposed to show up, but other people might not get it at all. I didn't get the part of you that was playing the role of you don't want to make trouble for anyone. I saw the funny one. I still do on occasion, however, the healthier you get, the less funny you are. You're fun, but before you were cracking jokes all the time.
Yeah, left, right, and center.
You were. Where now, yes, you're fun and you can be funny, but it's in an entirely different way.
Well, maybe being the funny one was part of being the one that didn't cause problems. If you're funny and you're fun and you're laughing, you can actually make people think you got it all figured out or you're doing all right, even if inside you're crying, or not even inside. If you're by yourself, you might be crying. And that's what the funny one can do. A lot of funny people are very sad. So they could be playing a role of the funny one to not let people know they got a lot going on inside. But that's where this question comes in. Who am I underneath this role? I felt like I always knew, but I didn't know if I could show up and be authentic. What would it be if I wasn't the funny one? What would it be if I wasn't cracking jokes? And I think you can see some of that, like you're sharing. You're not as funny, but you're still fun.
Correct. When I thought about this episode and I thought about, okay, we're going to talk about letting go of the roles and expectations, letting go of roles. Oh my gosh, that can be a really difficult experience to let go, especially, I don't know how it felt to let go of the role of being the funny one, but when you're letting go of the role of being the fixer, that becomes your identity. or the responsible one or the caretaker that we were talking about. These are identities that not only have we created for ourselves, but we've allowed others to create those for us too. So to let go of that, we have to do so much work. Well, who am I underneath the role? First of all, we've got to figure it out. And then we have to have the courage to share with others that I don't want to be the fixer anymore. I can't be the problem solver all the time. And that is difficult because people, not only us, but the people in our lives, they don't know what to do when we've made that shift at first. And that's where I'll say my experience with you letting go of being the funny one. I would say at first it was a little, I don't want to say sad, but it was, this is different. And then as I get used to your new way of showing up, your more authentic way of showing up, seeing you happier and calmer, then I'm much more willing to say, well, this is so much better. Because people rely on the funny one. People rely on the fixer. People rely on the person being the responsible one. I mean, we had a client last week that was really interesting. They were saying how they were gone for a while, and then when they got back, they heard from everyone, whether it was from somebody from the workplace, family members, and they actually have the role of being more of the fixer, the responsible one, and people were pretty much lost without their presence. It was a really good experience for that particular client because they could see, wow, this is a lot to show up for all these different folks as the one who's going to take care of everything. And I do believe that the longer we do that, the older we get. I'm not saying we get old and we get tired and we can't do it anymore. It's more like the number of years that we do it, we get burned out playing that role. Because the question is, who am I underneath this role? Who am I if I'm not the funny one?
For me, I had to go through several stages. First, to stop cracking jokes when I'm uncomfortable. Sometimes it was an inappropriate timing for a joke, but it was learning to recognize that's me trying to deal with an uncomfortable situation for me. It was too much for me. So then the impulse, not the intentional act, the impulse was to crack a joke. I got pretty good at that, not cracking a joke when it became uncomfortable. But what I still have struggled with, and I get better all the time, and this was something our mentor pointed out to me, I start smiling when I'm uncomfortable.
Well, that's what I mean, Ada. That's the hard part for the other people in our lives, because I learned also through working with our mentor with you that you would smile when you were uncomfortable. And I had always misread that smile. I didn't know that there was sadness underneath that smile. So you created this identity where you're funny, and then if something made you uncomfortable, instead of going into sadness or allowing people to understand, you would just put a smile on your face and move on. So just think, I mean, I really appreciate you being willing to share this example, because just think of the people in your life had to get used to you not being the funny one, because people can rely on that. And then also get to know you for real, as opposed to this mask or this persona that you had been living from.
I just want to say one more thing before we go, since we are just about out of time. I don't know if you noticed this. Last week, we took Marcus to the vet as a little emergency, and there was a time when the vet was explaining to us what could be happening to him. He's okay. He's alive and well. It's all good. But there was this time I caught myself smiling. Like I could just feel it in my face. And this was really serious, and I could just tell, oh, there's a smile coming. And then I had to try to not smile, which was hard. Not because it was a funny moment. It was actually horrifying. But I could just feel that automatic smile creeping into my face when it was really serious.
Well, let's pick up here tomorrow. We can say, oh, we have to let go of playing a role and expectations. It's harder than that sounds. So much harder.
Totally.
And it takes a while. It takes a while for us to understand and for those who we have in our lives to understand.
So for today, let's all ask ourselves this question, the question I mentioned earlier, as a reflection question or a curiosity question. I'll leave it up to you which one you want it to be. Who am I underneath the roles I play? Who am I underneath the roles I play? Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.